Korea Initiative.
The future is already in motion. Intelligence redesigns reality. Life expands beyond limits. Culture moves the world. Our vision reaches into the infinite. Together, we will go even further.
The K Initiative.
Are you curious about Korean cultural heritage?
If you are a fan of Korean culture and history, listen up. Korean cultural heritage is based on a 5,000-year history.
The whole country is like a massive museum because it possesses such diverse cultural properties. Let's not wait any longer and take a look.
First, for beginners, for those who are not familiar with Korea, let's start with the world-famous list.
You can see how Korea's beautiful traditional patterns and historical features have been preserved.
And don't forget to experience Korea's intangible cultural heritage. From Gangangsule to Talchum, there's just so many exciting cultural heritages to experience.
These are for intermediate level tourists who have already visited Korea and its famous attractions. You might even be standing in a World Heritage Site right now.
How about searching for intangible cultural heritage that you can experience? 한소리, 제주 해녀 diving, 김장. Make some unforgettable memories while having fun.
Last but not least, the advanced level. It's the memory of the World Register. Korea possesses an extensive documentary heritage. Korea is serious about documentation and preservation.
A tour of Korean cultural heritage will become a legacy of your own.
Why not make your own Korean cultural heritage travel itinerary?
Isn't it fascinating?
주파수를 훔쳐봐도 오랫동안 날리고 밤을 어디를지 우를 훔치는 적이 언덕을 가도 멀찍이 태양은 언제나
In our headlines on this Monday, July 20th, here in South Korea, The future of the world's most treasured heritage sites is under discussion in the southern port city of Busan, where South Korea is hosting UNESCO's World Heritage Committee session for the first time. Meanwhile, the U.S. concludes a 9th straight night of strikes against Iran on Sunday, following news of a U.S. service member killed in action in Iraq this past weekend, raising the death toll of U.S. service members in the war with Iran to 17. And on the football field, Spain wins the 2026 FIFA World Cup with a 1-0 victory against Argentina, while K-pop sensation BTS and actress Jang Ho-yeon join the final celebrations. Against the backdrop of war, climate change and growing threats to cultural heritage, South Korea has welcomed thousands of delegates to Busan for UNESCO's annual World Heritage Committee meeting. Our culture correspondent Chung Hye-rim files this report from the southern port city.
The UNESCO World Heritage Committee adopted the Busan Declaration on Monday, a South Korea-led initiative calling for stronger international cooperation to protect World Heritage sites. It proposes adding collaboration as the sixth strategic objective of the World Heritage Convention, alongside the existing 5 priorities, while also highlighting challenges posed by armed conflict, climate change, development pressures, and rapid technological change.
The Busan Declaration, adopted during the opening session, will serve as a key achievement of this World Heritage Committee and a milestone for the future.
Korean culture is also being showcased beyond the conference hall through the K Heritage House from Monday to July 29th, where visitors can explore dozens of exhibitions, performances, and interactive experiences highlighting Korea's cultural and natural heritage. The first plenary sessions saw delegates adopting the committee's agenda and timetable before beginning discussions on reports from the World Heritage Center and its advisory bodies. The afternoon session focused on ways to strengthen heritage protection in Africa and small island developing states. The committee will spend the coming days reviewing the conservation status of existing World Heritage sites before turning to new inscriptions and modifications, including South Korea's proposal to expand the Gaeol, Korean tidal flats World Heritage Site. Chung Hye-rim, Arirang News, Busan.
Staying in Busan, President Lee Jae-myung used the opening of UNESCO's World Heritage Committee meeting there to call for greater international cooperation, adding that protecting the world's shared cultural heritage is key to building a more peaceful future. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Working toward a peaceful future through global solidarity during times of division. That was the core message by President Lee Jae-myung speaking at the opening ceremony of the 48th session of the World Heritage Committee on Sunday in Busan. He took note of this year's meeting taking place in South Korea as UNESCO commemorates the 150th anniversary of the birth of independence activist Baekbum Kim-gu, adding that his recognition of culture and peace aligns with UNESCO's spirit of constructing the defenses of peace.
높은 문화의 힘을 바탕으로 인류의 소중한 유산을 함께 지키고 세계의 평화와 번영에 기여하는 나라로 백범 선생의 뜻을 이어가겠습니다.
The president also highlighted the remarkable economic growth Korea has achieved through international cooperation, noting that it has transformed itself into a cultural powerhouse that connects with people around the world.
원조를 받던 나라에서 원조를 하는 나라로 나아가 문화의 가치를 함께 나누는 나라로 성장한 우리 대한민국의 여정은 협력과 연대가 만들어낸 인류 공동의 성공 사례라고 자부합니다.
He called the country's southeastern city of Busan a living proof of how international cooperation can change the destiny of a city, saying that the city has risen from the ashes of the Korean War and grown into a global maritime city. On Sunday, Lee and UNESCO Director General Khaled Al-Anani discussed bolstering the partnership between Korea and UNESCO, noting cooperation in the areas of education, culture, and science. The UNESCO chief toured the K Heritage House exhibition hall along with President Lee and First Lady Kim Hae-kyung. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Over in the Middle East, reports of additional U.S. casualties in recent days triggered intense U.S. retaliation against Iran this past Sunday, raising the risks of a wider conflict. Our Oh Soo-young has the latest.
The United States has carried out a 9th consecutive night of strikes on Iran as the death of 3 American service members fuels a widening cycle of retaliation. President Donald Trump said the latest attack was intended to honor the 3 troops, adding that Iran had suffered a major military blow.
Iran has been very, very badly damaged. They've lost everything almost militarily. They've got very little left. They've got some missiles. They've got some drones. They've got some manufacturing ability, not much. We control the Strait. They don't control anything. So we'll see what happens. But we hit them very hard again tonight. And we did that in honor of the probably 3. It's probably 3 as opposed to 2. Great patriots.
U.S. Central Command says the operation began at 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time on Sunday and continued for 3 hours. It targeted Iranian military command centers, air defense systems, and coastal surveillance facilities. 2 U.S. service members were killed Friday during an Iranian missile and drone attack on American forces in Jordan. A 3rd died Saturday in northern Iraq while carrying out a controlled detonation of unexploded ordnance from a downed Iranian attack drone. The deaths bring confirmed U.S. military fatalities since the war began to 17. Unidentified remains have also been recovered from the site of Friday's attack in Jordan. If they are confirmed as belonging to a missing U.S. service member, the toll would rise to 18. Iran, meanwhile, expanded its attacks on Sunday. Air raid sirens sounded in Bahrain, home to the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet, while Kuwait says it intercepted another Iranian drone. The Revolutionary Guard also says it struck the U.S. base at Al Tanf in Syria. Tehran has separately accused Washington of striking the construction site of the dock of a nuclear power plant. The IAEA says the facility contained no nuclear material and poses no radiological risk. Tensions are also growing in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran claims 2 tankers exploded while attempting to use what it called an unsafe route late Sunday, warning that oil, gas and fertilizer shipments would remain at risk. The cause remains unconfirmed, although a British maritime agency separately reported a vessel on fire around 15 kilometres off Oman's Musandam Peninsula. Arirang News.
And global oil prices are soaring in response to the renewed fighting between the U.S. and Iran. Brent crude futures topped the $90 mark for the first time since June 11th, gaining over 3% to $90.8 a barrel as of this past Sunday. West Texas Intermediate also rose more than 3% to slightly over $85 a barrel. Market observers warn that prolonged supply chain disruptions within the Strait of Hormuz may further drive up raw material costs and aggravate global inflation. The government here, for its part, is stepping up efforts to shield the South Korean economy from mounting global risks, including U.S. trade measures and instability in the Middle East. Our Lee Ju-yeon has more.
The Korean government has designated the stable management of the external environment as a core task amid rising external uncertainties. According to the ministerial meeting on international economic affairs on Monday, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and Economy Koo Yoon-chol said the government will leverage its cooperation networks built through bilateral summits to manage external risk. Minister Koo announced that the government is closely coordinating with the U.S. on trade management and that it is putting the national interest first. He explained that the officials are actively discussing responses to U.S. tariff measures and follow-up implementations to counter non-tariff barriers. Regarding the plan to invest $350 billion in the U.S., he said Korea is reviewing its commercial feasibility and implementation system. Following the enforcement of the Korea-U.S. Strategic Investment Special Act in June, the government has launched the Project Management Committee and the Steering Committee to build the institutional and infrastructural foundations for the investment. The government has also laid out frameworks for strategic economic cooperation. This includes a comprehensive official development assistance business model, the KAI package, aimed at enhancing the growth potential of developing countries. The core of the KAI package lies in upgrading traditional ODA projects into AI-driven initiatives, building AI solutions, data centers, and the necessary power infrastructure alongside it. During the meeting, Korea's finalizations of a comprehensive economic partnership agreement with Bangladesh was also discussed. The government aims to improve market access for Korean businesses in Bangladesh and secure a strategic hub to penetrate the wider Southwest Asian market. Lee Ju-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korean stocks suffered a sharp sell-off this morning, triggering sell-side sidecars in both the KOSPI and KOSDAQ markets earlier in the day. The benchmark KOSPI closed at 6,516.2, down over 4% from the previous session. The tech-heavy KOSDAQ also ended down at 749.6, surrendering over 5%. The losses were led by investors unloading more stocks linked to artificial intelligence. And a global sell-off in semiconductor stocks is hitting South Korean chipmakers hard as investors growing increasingly skeptical about whether massive AI investments will deliver the returns that have been promised. Our Park Chun-han reports.
The global semiconductor stock sell-off has wiped out massive market value in recent weeks. When it comes to correction, the Korean market has been no exception. Major memory chip makers like Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix have seen their shares fall by at least 30% from their recent highs just a few weeks ago, effectively pulling the KOSPI down from the 9,300 level to the mid-6,000s. The main driver is growing skepticism surrounding artificial intelligence investments. For months, U.S. tech giants such as Alphabet, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon have been pouring hundreds of billions of dollars of capital expenditure, or CapEx, into AI infrastructure. Their combined CapEx is projected to reach unprecedented levels by 2027. However, investors are now demanding proof that these massive spending sprees are generating measurable financial returns. This ideology extends to memory stocks as well. While investors acknowledge that memory leaders are set to post unprecedented earnings, many are selling the stocks, questioning whether further price hikes and margin expansion can continue. Despite the recent plunge, memory chip fundamentals remain relatively solid. DRAM prices are continuing their upward trend, and demand for AI investments remains strong. Yet, global stock prices are facing adjustments amid moves of risk-averse profit-taking. Adding to this pressure are geopolitical tensions, particularly the resurgence of war in the Middle East. Depending on the guidance big tech firms provide, investors will see whether the current market correction deepens or whether Korea's chip giants can finally stage a meaningful rebound. If big tech companies reaffirm their massive spending and express confidence in returns on their investments, it would be a positive sign for chip stocks. If not, it could further weigh on investor sentiment. Park Chun-han, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, at the National Assembly, political tensions are rising as the ruling and opposition parties face off over extending the special counsel investigation to former President Yoon Suk-yeol. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin explains.
Political tensions are escalating as the ruling Democratic Party pushes to extend the mandate of a special counsel investigating former President Yoon Suk-yeol and former First Lady Kim Gon-hee on allegations of insurrection and abuse of power. During a plenary session on Monday, the DP proposed an amendment which would allow the special counsel's investigation to continue for an additional 30 days, extending the deadline from July 24th to August 23rd.
The special counsel has faced limits in both time and manpower. That's why we're proposing this amendment, to extend the investigation, expand its scope, and increase staffing so the probe can be carried out thoroughly.
However, the effort has been stalled by an opposition filibuster from the People Power Party. The main opposition, PPP, has announced the extension as politically motivated and aimed at suppressing the opposition.
Once again, they're asking for more time. If that's the case, they should clearly explain why. Instead, they're giving the same reasons. If it keeps being extended, can this still be called a special investigation?
The probe launch in February has received 2 extensions under the existing bill. The proposed bill would expand the number of seconded government officials supporting the investigation from 130 to 150, add obstruction of government audits to a list of prosecutable offenses, and authorize the appointment of dedicated prosecutors to handle cases brought by the special counsel in court. The standoff is expected to continue into Tuesday. However, the ruling party can seek to end the filibuster after 24 hours with the backing of 3/5 of lawmakers. Given the DP's majority, the bill is expected to be voted on Tuesday afternoon, where it is widely expected to pass. 안성진, Arirang News.
Beyond borders, after hosting a senior Chinese delegation in Pyongyang last week, North Korea dispatched its foreign minister Choi Sun-hee to the Kremlin this past weekend for talks with Russia's Vladimir Putin. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
Russian President Vladimir Putin showed his closeness to North Korea on Sunday local time, personally welcoming Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee during her official visit to Moscow just 9 months after her last trip.
I would like to once again express my gratitude for the support of our special military operation and for the decision to send soldiers of the Korean People's Army to participate in the liberation of the Kursk region.
The Democratic People's Republic of Korea will continue to unwaveringly support all of Russia's efforts aimed at upholding its sovereignty, security interests, and territorial integrity, and at eliminating the root causes of the crisis in Ukraine.
This engagement follows a series of recent events demonstrating Pyongyang's close ties with China. As North Korea moves to woo Russia as well, the diplomatic push leverages a critical opening created by the ongoing conflict.
Russia is currently in a highly unfavorable wartime situation where tighter military collaboration with North Korea has become an absolute necessity.
Recent data from the Center for Strategic and International Studies shows Russian casualties hitting 30,000 a month, outpacing recruitment. Compounded by shrinking frontline control and relentless drone strikes, Moscow faces crippling attrition, forcing it to rely on North Korea, which, according to reports, has supplied massive ammunition stocks and up to 15,000 troops.
From Russia's perspective, they need more weapons support due to the intensifying war. For North Korea, they are likely demanding faster transfers of advanced military technology and economic cooperation in return for their troop deployment.
With mutual strategic dependency rapidly accelerating, eyes are now on whether Kim Jong-un will make a trip to Russia himself by the end of the year. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And on the football field, Spain won the 2026 FIFA World Cup with a 1-0 victory against Argentina, while K-pop sensation BTS and actress Chung Ho-yeon joined the final celebrations. Our Lee Seung-jae has the highlights.
Spain defeated Argentina 1-0 at the New York, New Jersey Stadium on Sunday to win the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Spain controlled the match from start to finish, preventing Argentina from having a single shot on target. The defensive masterclass was a fitting end to a remarkable campaign in which Spain conceded just 1 goal throughout the tournament. However, the decisive moment came in the 106th minute of extra time when Ferran Torres found the breakthrough against a 10-man Argentina, sealing a 1-0 victory and Spain's World Cup triumph. The World Cup victory marked Spain's second title, having previously won the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. Meanwhile, actress Chung Ho-yeon and K-pop supergroup BTS made appearances at the 2026 FIFA World Cup final. Chung took part in the pre-match trophy presentation as a global ambassador for Louis Vuitton, appearing alongside Spanish tennis star Carlos Alcaraz. The pair opened the Louis Vuitton trophy case before unveiling the FIFA World Cup trophy to the crowd. At halftime, BTS took the stage as one of the performers in the tournament's first ever World Cup final halftime show, sharing the spotlight with global stars including Madonna, Justin Bieber, and Shakira. The group energized the stadium with a performance of its hit song Dynamite. Member Jungkook also marked a World Cup milestone, having performed Dreamers, the official soundtrack of the 2022 Qatar World Cup, at the 2022 opening ceremony, before returning 4 years later to perform at the final on Sunday. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And on the big screen, Korean sci-fi film Hope by director Na Hong-jin has surpassed the 2 million admission mark less than a week after its release, making the fastest film to reach this box office milestone this year. Now, this is according to industry insiders. Hope, starring Hwang Jung-min, Cho In-sung, and Chung Ho-yeon, opened at local theaters on July 15th. The film follows a local police chief of a small harbour town who is called to look into reports of a potential tiger in the neighbourhood, only to discover a far worse danger.
This is the world now. Andy Burnham takes office as Britain's Prime Minister on Monday, replacing Keir Starmer as leader of the governing Labour Party. Burnham, the former mayor of Greater Manchester, was declared Labour leader on Friday after running unopposed to replace Starmer, who resigned after 2 years following a fall in popularity and a rebellion within his own party. Burnham will be Britain's 7th Prime Minister since 2016. His office says one of his first moves will be scrapping a planned digital ID scheme, originally designed to curb illegal migration, and redirecting the funding toward cost of living support. In Peru, at least 6 people have been killed and 21 injured after 2 earthquakes struck a mountainous region on Saturday night. The quakes hit Chupaca province in the Junin region, about 300 kilometers east of Lima. Peru's National Seismological Center measured them at magnitudes 5.1 and 3.7, while the European Mediterranean Seismological Center reported the first at magnitude 5.6. Peru's civil defense head said about 48 homes have been destroyed and another 18 damaged, affecting roughly 300 people who are being sheltered in tents. Emergency crews were clearing debris Sunday amid concern that more victims could be trapped. A leather jacket belonging to NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang has been sold at auction for $960,000 US. The Tom Ford jacket drew 65 bids from 45 collectors at Sotheby's on Friday. It sold for more than 15 times its pre-sale estimate of $40,000 to $60,000. The jacket was authenticated using photo matching to footage of Huang wearing it at a Foxconn event in Taipei in October 2023. Huang has worn similar leather jackets for more than a decade at NVIDIA product launches and conferences. Proceeds from the sale will go to a philanthropic initiative supporting a nonprofit that organizes gatherings for people in tech, science, and culture. Ju Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
We're seeing on and off rain in Seoul at the moment. A band of heavy rain is stretching across much of the central regions right now. The seasonal rain front will stick around this week, bringing rounds of monsoon rain to different parts of the country. Through today, up to 60 millimeters of rain will fall across the central regions and Gyeongsangbuk-do province. Elsewhere, most places will pick up around 5 to 40 millimeters of rain. After days of heavy rain, the ground is already saturated across much of the country. So please stay alert for possible landslides and any additional damage. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 24 degrees Celsius, Chuncheon 23 and Busan 26 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 29 degrees, Daejeon 31 degrees, Daegu 34 degrees. Tomorrow morning, the capital area and Gangwon-do province could see intense downpours of around 50 millimeters an hour. If you're heading out for the morning commute, give yourself a little extra time and stay safe. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, so do stay with us, and thank you for now.
어렸을 때부터 어머니가 미술학원을 운영을 하셨어요. 그래서 거기 가서 놀고 하다 보니까 자연스럽게 미술을 접하게 됐고 저는 그리고 만드는 것 중에 만드는 게 더 재밌었어요. 그래서 이제 도예과 입학해서 다양한 재료들을 경험을 해봤지만 그 중에서도 물레성형 기법에 굉장히 매료가 됐고 이 기법을 평생 하면서 하면 행복하겠다는 생각이 들어서 도자기를 계속 하게 되었습니다. 작업하시는 분들은 다들 공감을 하시겠지만 사실 정답이 없잖아요. 그래서 항상 불안하고 제가 제대로 된 길을 가고 있는지에 대한 이런 마음이 엄청 큰데 프란치라는 좀 어떻게 보면 저한테는 되게 큰 상이었거든요. 제가 잘하고 있다고 도닥여주고 제대로 길을 가고 있다고 확신을 주는 것 같아서 저한테는 되게 의미 있는 지금까지 작업을 할 수 있는 원동력이기도 했고요. 저는 옛날에 기 형태들을 많이 참고하는 편인 것 같고요. 엄청나게 섬세한 기법들을 통해서 장식이 되어 있거든요. 저는 그런 장식들을 일부분씩 뜯어와서 그걸 제만의 방식대로 입체화시킵니다. 원래는 기라는 형태 자체가 실제로 사용하기 위해서 만들어졌잖아요. 그 공간을 저는 어떻게 하면 더 흥미롭게 보여줄 수 있을까? 그래서 제가 집중했던 부분이 창인데요. 건축에서도 창을 내부와 외부를 잇는 통로? 또는 매개체라고 많이들 이야기를 하잖아요. 저는 그 부분에서 영감을 받아서 그 창의 의미를 형태에 접목시키게 되었습니다. 그래서 요즘에는 이제 설치 작업도 많이 하는 것 같아요. 보통은 컵 같은 경우는 최종 완성까지 한 3주에서 4주 정도 소요가 되고요. 큰 작업 같은 경우는 한 3달까지도 걸리는 작업들도 있는 것 같아요. 저 같은 경우는 창같이 복잡한 패턴들을 함께 구성을 하다 보니까 정말 많이 갈라져요. 그래서 재벌 가마에 들어가 있을 때가 가장 긴장되는 순간인 것 같습니다. 사실 공간이라는 것이 볼 수도 없고 만질 수도 없는 어떠한 무형의 어떤 것이잖아요. 그거를 이제 빛이나 그림자나 무형의 어떤 요소들을 활용해서 같이 공감할 수 있는 작업을 하고 싶습니다.
On Press Perspective today, we touch upon the escalating conflict between the U.S. and Iran, as well as North Korea's diplomatic engagements. Do stay with us. Hope your work week is off to a good start. You're watching Press Perspective for this Monday, July 20th here in Seoul. I'm Min San-hee. From escalating tensions between the U.S. and Iran to North Korea's deepening ties with Russia and China, the global security landscape is becoming increasingly complex. For more on this reality and its broader implications, I have Celio Fioretti with French daily Le Croix here in the studio. Celio, welcome back.
Glad to be back. It's been a while.
I also have Professor Che Hyun-jin at Kyung University joining us virtually. Professor Che, it's great to have you with us.
Evening, thank you for having me.
Celio, we start here in the studio. Let's begin with the latest events in the military confrontation between the U.S. and Iran.
Well, it's a never-ending war, and the conflict has entered a new dangerous phase. Over the weekend, the U.S. carried out another wave of airstrike on Iran, saying that they were aimed at punishing the Revolutionary Guard after Iranian attack killed 2 American service members in Jordan. Those were the first confirmed U.S. military deaths since the latest round of fighting began, bringing the total number of American casualties to 16 since the beginning of the conflict in February. Iran also responded immediately. It says it launched drone strikes against 2 U.S. military bases in Kuwait, targeting ammunition depot and Patriot missile system and radar system. Tehran also claimed to have attacked American position in Bahrain and Jordan, showing that the conflict is re-spreading across the region, as it was at the beginning with airstrike on several airports. And at the political level, the situation also appears to be deteriorating. A preliminary ceasefire agreement has reportedly collapsed, largely because of the dispute over the Strait of Hormuz being closed. And both sides are also using a relatively aggressive rhetoric. Iran's new supreme leader has promised what he called an unforgettable lesson to the U.S., while senior Iranian commanders also warned of further large-scale attack and retaliation if American strikes continue. So for now, there's really no sign of de-escalation, and concerns are growing about a potential spread of the conflict to regional countries.
Right, indeed. And given these latest events, Professor Che, do you believe diplomacy remains a viable option?
Yes, as Celio just noted, the situation is getting worse. This makes diplomatic solution much more difficult. But nevertheless, I still believe diplomacy is the only realistic option to end this war. But the deaths of American soldiers by Iranian attack will surely put more pressure on the American government. So we may see more military action in the coming days. But if we look at what has happened in the recent months, I don't think military force alone can solve all of this problem. Iran has continued to fight back despite the repeated attack by America and Israel. And also the Iranian regime has stayed in power even after losing several of the top military and the political leaders, including the former supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei. We have also not seen the large-scale anti-government protests in Iran, although some people expect it. So this tells us something about Iran, and this is very important. It is possible maybe to damage Iran's military, but it is much harder to compel the Iranian regime to back down. I don't think Iran wants a full-scale war or ground war with the United States, because the cost of this full-scale war would be simply too high for the United States and also Iran as well. So that's why I expect military pressure is not a simple solution for this war. Although there will be some military action will continue for some time. But in the end, military alone will not bring peace. The only way to end this war is through direct talk and a political agreement between the two countries.
Right, of course. At the table, of course, then. Celio, against the backdrop of this fresh fighting between the two countries, quite a number of observers have been looking into who potentially wins from a prolonged war. What have you been hearing on the ground?
Well, economically speaking, there are clear winners and losers. Also, it's important to stress that no one is really winning in case of a war. The biggest winners, at least in short terms, are energy exporters outside the Gulf, which is, for example, countries like Norway, Canada, or Russia. They stand more benefit because of higher oil and gas prices, which makes their export more valuable. But perhaps the biggest beneficiary in the war right now is Russia. As global markets scramble for alternative source of gas and oil, Russian crude exports, particularly to India, for example, have increased significantly, potentially bringing Moscow billions of dollars in additional revenue while it's still at war with Ukraine. And on the other hand, countries more exposed to risk are major energy importers. Europe, the UK, and much of Asia, especially South Korea, are quite vulnerable because of rising gas prices, which feed inflation and transport costs and household energy bills. South Korea, as I said, is partly exposed because around 70% of its oil comes from the Middle East. There are also concerns that disruption could also affect maybe a bigger share of the economy, with a lot of industry relying on crude oil import. Even the U.S. is losing on the economical side, with oil producers not having higher prices, but U.S. consumers are importing a lot of energy and consuming a lot of energy. So that's also a bigger issue. But for the US, I think they lose more on the political side. The more the war drags on, the more complicated it gets to justify it to the American voters, especially with the midterms coming soon. So the Trump administration will face a big cost on a big political cost as long as the war drags on.
Right, indeed. Professor Che, as Celia mentioned, South Korea secures most of its energy supplies through the disputed Strait of Hormuz. That being said, what options do you propose for this country?
Yeah, this is a very difficult situation. First of all, I think South Korea should see this crisis as more than an energy problem. I think this is also a security problem for South Korea. So we are getting most of our crude oil, about 65 to 70%, through the Strait of Hormuz. So any conflict or instability in this region can quickly raise oil price and shipping costs for South Korea. It can also raise the price in South Korea in general and also affect people's daily lives. So in the short term, we must make sure that South Korea has enough energy. And therefore, it is important to work closely with the United States and also other Arab countries to open the sea lanes in the Middle East, especially the Strait of Hormuz. Although I know right now it is very, very challenging and difficult. And therefore, I think the bigger lesson is about the future. So we should not depend too much on one route or one region. We should buy energy from more countries and build a safer supply system. This is not only about crude oil, but this is also about natural gas and shipping lane. So South Korea should also keep investing in clean energy, therefore renewable energy, and the nuclear power as well. The goal is not to stop buying energy from the Middle East right away, but it is to reduce the risk step by step. So this crisis in the Middle East, in the Strait of Hormuz, also show that energy and national security are now closely interrelated. So in the past, we often saw energy mainly as an economic issue, but today it is also a security issue. A war far away from the Korean Peninsula can now directly hurt Korean economy and possibly security. So my point is simple. We must deal with today's crisis by working closely with the United States and other Arab countries. But South Korea must also get ready for the next one, possible future conflict in our own region or in the Middle East. A stronger energy system with more supplier and more routes is the best way to protect South Korea in the long term.
Right, indeed, diversification. And speaking about our region, Celia, let's turn to diplomacy on the Korean Peninsula. North Korea has been actively promoting its foreign policy with its key partners, namely China and Russia. Could you walk us through some of the engagements in recent days?
Exactly, there has been definitely a noticeable uptick in high-level diplomacy between North Korea and China, for example, over the past few weeks. Just recently, a senior Chinese leader, Wang Huning, visited Pyongyang, where he met both Kim Jong-un and Jo Yong-won, one of North Korea's most powerful party official. That came only days after North Korean Premier Park Tae-sung traveled to Beijing also for talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. All of this also followed Xi Jinping coming to Pyongyang last month, his first in 7 years. Officially, these exchanges are marking the 65th anniversary of the China and North Korea Treaty of Friendship, but the scale and frequencies of those visits suggest there's maybe something much more going on between the two countries. Both sides are emphasizing closer strategic coordination, and at a time where regional tensions are rising, and the international landscape, as you mentioned, is becoming more complex and increasingly polarized. What's particularly striking right now is the China messaging. In the past, Beijing usually was showing friendship to North Korea, but also at the same time mentioning denuclearization as an objective. That reference essentially disappeared of recent communication. Instead, Chinese officials are focusing on increasing common goals and defending shared ideas between the two countries, which means that maybe Beijing is becoming closer to accept North Korea as a de facto nuclear state. The shift also reflects broader geopolitical dynamics. North Korea has deepened its military partnership with Russia, and actually Foreign Minister was en route to Moscow over the weekend. And China also appears to reinforce its influence over North Korea. Both countries want to maintain, Russia and China both want to maintain influence over their neighbor, to maybe present a more united front against the U.S. And especially strategic cooperation between U.S., South Korea and Japan. So we clearly see both sides really aligning to have a stronger front on the region, which of course will increase tension.
Right. Professor Che, I wonder, how significant is this renewed high-level engagement between North Korea and China, and that between North Korea and Russia?
I think this is a very important development. So North Korea and China and also Russia are not simply holding more meeting. I think they are sending a clear message that they want to cooperate more closely together for their security. I think North Korea needs China's economic aid and also political support. China also wants to keep its influence over North Korea and also maintain balance of power on the Korean peninsula. And also North Korea and Russia have cooperated closely in its ongoing war between the Ukraine and Russia as well. But the wider international situation is also important. As Celio just noted, now the international politics surrounding East Asia is very polarized. So Trump administration has taken a much harder approach toward its rival country. And so competition between the United States and China is also becoming stronger in South China Sea and also in the Strait of Taiwan. So we have also seen American military actions in Venezuela and Iran. So these kind of events have increased fear in Beijing more often, possibly in East Asia. And as a result, I think North Korea, China, and Russia have now stronger reason to support one another. And that's why I believe international politics in East Asia is widely polarized. Because these three countries, North Korea, China, and Russia, and they share concern about American pressure and stronger military tie between Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo, and perhaps closer cooperation between South Korea and NATO as well. So this renewed contact between North Korea, China, and Russia is not only about their bilateral relationship. It is a part of a wider move toward closer cooperation among North Korea, China, and Russia. I think this is not simply about their friendship. I think this is their strategic response to growing pressure from Washington and a conflict in the international system today.
Right, and speaking about pressure from Washington, top military leaders from Seoul, Washington and Tokyo, they recently reaffirmed their cooperation against North Korea's nuclear weapons. Could you tell us a bit about this reaffirmation and, of course, its broader implications?
Well, that was an expected pledge, but the meeting in Washington was more about demonstrating that trilateral security cooperation remains strong despite political change in all three countries. The top military chief from South Korea, United States and Japan reaffirmed that commitment to working together to counter North Korea's growing nuclear and missile capabilities. Concretely, they pledged that they want to continue joint military exercises, including the annual Freedom Edge drill, which cover multiple domains such as land, sea, air, cyber, and space. They also agreed to strengthen intelligence sharing among the three countries to improve military interoperability and expand high-level exchanges between their armed forces. The broader implication is that these three countries are trying to institutionalize their cooperation so that it becomes less dependent on changes of government. That's particularly significant because relationship between South Korea and Japan are fluctuating depending on who's in the White House or in the Blue House or in Japan, in Tokyo. So by creating regular military exercises and cooperation, routine coordination, they're building a more durable security framework between the three allies. Of course, North Korea sees things very differently. Pyongyang has once again condemned this exercise as rehearsal for an invasion or an aggression of their countries. That closer cooperation between Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo justify for North Korea their increase of spending in their armament. So from the allies' perspective, from Washington, for example, this is more about being ready in case of a problem in the region. But from North Korea, it reinforces the narrative that they always use, that they're surrounded by enemies, and that will justify their aggression, maybe. So this is a good sign. The cooperation is a good sign for South Korea, Japan, and Washington, but it can also fuel tension because North Korea is using it as a tool to justify its weapon program.
Right, and staying on the Korean Peninsula, Professor Che, is there any realistic path to renewed dialogue between the two Koreas, do you think?
At the moment, frankly speaking, I don't think there is many chances for renewed dialogue between the two Korea. The biggest problem is that the current international environment is making dialogue very difficult. As I said earlier, now we are living in a very polarized world. And also there is a problem of international sanction on North Korea. So because of the U.S. Security Council sanction, there is a very little chance for economic cooperation or tourism between North and South Korea. And in addition, the military communication has been cut off for a long time. And right now, almost all official channels for dialogue have stopped working as well. So at the same time, the North Korea has become much closer to both China and Russia, as I told already. From Pyongyang's point of view, right now, North Korea in a stronger strategic position from Pyongyang's point of view, okay? So they believe they now have a stronger security tie with Moscow and Beijing, partly thanks to because of its participation in the Ukraine war. And for this reason, North Korea has no strong reason to restart talk with South Korea. And another challenge is that the trust between the two Korea is now very low. So even if both governments want to meet tomorrow, there are almost no official channels for dialogue anymore. But however, in the world of diplomacy, the change is always possible. And therefore, this does not mean dialogue is impossible. The history shows that the situation on the Korean Peninsula can change very quickly. And therefore, if the security environment improves or the political situation changes, then there could be some opportunities for dialogue as well. But for now, the first step is not a summit or major agreement between the two governments. The first step is simply restoring communication. So without communication, it is very difficult to rebuild the trust between the two Korea. And without trust, meaningful dialogue is also impossible.
Right, indeed. Those are the thoughts of Professor Choi Hyun-jin with regard to prospects of dialogue here on the Korean Peninsula. I'm afraid that's all the time we have today. Professor Choi, as always, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you very much.
Celia here in the studio, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts. Right, that's all for this edition of Press Perspective. As always, thank you for watching.
bringing the piece vividly to life. On top of the lid, seated at a slight angle, the creature is a lion. In Buddhism, lions are regarded as mystical guardians of truth. And during the Goryeo dynasty, many celadon works were crafted in the form of lions. Though lions are seen as brave and powerful, this one feels endearingly cute, but no less significant. The smoke rising from the burner passes through the holes in the lid and slowly escapes into the air through the lion's mouth. As for the lid, an additional tier was raised on top, carefully placing the lion above it, while the body of the burner is adorned with expansive cloud motifs. What truly makes this incense burner shine is that subtle twist in perspective. Rather than centered, it's set slightly off to one side, gently breaking away from the conventional idea of a perfect symmetry. Small yet confident, off-center yet beautiful. The essence of Goryeo celadon defying convention. Shall we be drawn into the quiet charm of this piece, whose imperfection creates its own perfection?